You want in? Go to the door. Girl. What do you think that is, Cali? You want out? Are you going out or not? Okay. Do you want in? You want me to come out? I think that's what you're looking for, right? You want me to come out there? Or are you gonna come in? Do you want to come in or not? I can't leave the door open. Good girl. Coming in? Before I get started on dinner here, wanted to address a couple of things that I missed in that gear video that I did earlier this week. As always, I got great comments and suggestions and questions from you, and I Did forget a few things. A couple things I actually edited out because sometimes it doesn't flow properly and I have to take them out of the final edit, but then it kind of leaves the video lacking and leaves the information lacking. One of the main things I left out, face protection is extremely important as well in the cold winter, especially with the wind when it's blowing, like, especially ice fishing or just trekking across a frozen lake. The wind just beating on my face. It's not so bad in the bush, but out in the open like that, that wind chill can get pretty severe pretty quickly and you get frostbite really quickly. This is my camouflage one, something I wear typically when I'm hunting, but it's full coverage. I find the ice up. I don't like wearing them. I avoid it whenever possible, but there's just times that it's absolutely necessary to cover your face. Now, I did mention goggles in the video, in the clothing video. The problem with a balaclava and goggles, unless you get a really good pair of goggles that has great ventilation, is once it fogs up, which is continuous with a cheap pair, you're just not going to keep them on. And again, somebody mentioned scarves. A couple of people, I think Gene Boyd, you were one of them that mentioned scarves on my Facebook page, and you're right. Neck protection. I did mention that I tend to overheat, so I like having an open collar so I can vent, but then when I'm stopped, or again if the wind's really blowing, it's nice to have a scarf. I don't like a full scarf that's kind of in the way. I wear a buff, which is also known as a dicky. It just goes on over the neck like that, over your head and onto your neck, and then you can do all kinds of things with it. If you're breathing in cold air, you can pull it up like this and breathe through it so the air gets heated up before it enters your lungs. Great as a sort of as a balaclava. You can pull it like that and you'd be surprised how warm that keeps you. Tends to, unless there's a strong wind, just having something like this in front of you, your breath kind of accumulates here, and if the wind's not blowing it away, then it actually warms up your entire face. You'd be surprised that that's often enough. There's all kinds of configurations. I have a much longer one that's merino wool, might be icebreaker or something, and I find that extremely valuable because it can cover your neck and come up on fully over your head, and it's a great layering system to have a toque over top of that as well. So I highly recommend that. I love those things. What else? Something that I do, I make up this cream. Now, I don't know scientifically, I don't know if there's scientific validation for this, but I know there was a company, I'm not sure if they're still around, that makes a cold barrier cream. I make this cream myself out of lard, out of organic pig fat, basically, that I render down, and then I mix in spruce tips, like oil of spruce tip, what else? Magnesium, like carrot oil, a whole bunch of things that are really good for your skin. And there's coconut in there, and then beeswax, actually, that makes it hard like that. So it's cold right now, but it's extra hard. But I put that all over my face. My hands are dirty right now, so I'm not going to do it. But I put that a really thick layer on my face, right to the point where it actually kind of has a shine. I put it on after I come in as well, and really at this time of year the air is so dry that I put that on almost daily, regardless of whether I'm outside or not. Put it on my hands and my face, neck, everything. Keeps me moisturized. So that's invaluable. Somebody else mentioned silk. And the comment was short and sweet on my last video, and they just said silk long underwear, silk base layer is used on Everest expeditions, period. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm going to take his word for it because I like silk as well. I don't have any silk underwear or base layer top, but I do love the silk glove liners. In fact, they're my favorite liners by far. I think I cut that out of the video. I did film a segment here with it a couple of days ago, but I might have cut that out for some reason. But like I said, silk, really thin silk, like it's incredible that it can be worn, but it is really thin, like silk is, but I mean tight weave. So they're very thin on your hands, and you can manipulate your gear very easily with them on. the only thing is they're not all that durable, so they tend to catch on branches and things like that. So I go through them and have a hard time finding them. I think the last pair I bought might have been at Mountain Equipment Co-op, so you can check there. I think they might have them occasionally. But anyway, that's some of the things I know I was missing from the last video. So I'm gonna get going on dinner here. The light in here, you're gonna notice extremely bright on my face right now. These lanterns are actually bright enough, and if I wasn't filming and when I'm not filming, I don't have this light on. All I have is these lanterns and a couple of candle lanterns, and it's just such a nice warm glow. And even the glow from the fireplace coming in lights up the cabin, and you know, it's enough. So it's unfortunate that I need artificial light, but because I'm filming, I just have to do that. Now, something I do carry all the time, no matter where I am, is a headlamp. They're just extremely effective. They're easy to just stick in the pockets. You always have them on you. And, you know, when your light goes out, the candle burns out, or the battery on my light there dies, then at least I have a headlamp. This is the through night headlamp. I like it because it's very simple. There's only a couple settings. Turn it on. You can actually dim it or brighten it. So it's good. It's that's enough function for me. And with this rubber bracket, I guess you could call it, you just twist it up and down. So one button. Aircraft aluminum body, so it's extremely durable. You can drop this, you can put it in water. In fact, I did a couple of tests back in the summer when they sent it to me. I wanted to release a video specifically on that, but I didn't. But I do like it, and I think it's worth buying. I think they're only like 35 bucks. And like I said, durable, waterproof. You can submerge it in water down to something like 8 or 10 meters or something, 10 yards. So I recommend that as well. But let's get dinner on the go. Callie's falling asleep here. She's had a long day outside, which is great. But I'm going to make something. I'm sure that's going to get her up because she's going to be hungry. What are you thinking? Ready for bed? Tired girl, eh? You want any more food before bed? That's me in there. Cal, you're looking at my reflection, girl. Good girl. So I've got carrots, green beans, onion, celery, and leeks. And the meat is actually bear, from an animal that my friend Terry harvested back in, I think it was September. Gave me a nice back strap here. It's never the most tender meat unless you cook it long, but it has lots of flavor and it's really good. In fact, it's basically like beef. I never trick people, but what I'll do is, if we have company, I'll cook up a bear roast or some steaks or hamburgers or something, or caribou or deer or something else, but I'll also have some domestic meat as well, some domestic animals, in case, and then give them the option in case they don't, they're too squeamish to try it. But everybody invariably does, and without fail, they end up liking the game as much or more than the beef or pork or chicken or whatever else we're cooking. So 2 or 3 years ago, on this date, my wife and I decided that we both needed to lose some weight. But we were eating too much and not getting enough exercise because we were in the midst of the winding down that, we're taking care of that financial problem that we had, but also starting up the other business that got us out of the trouble. So we weren't focusing on our health. Cali, I'll give you some, okay? Do you want some? Okay. Take her to her dish, so I'm not going to feed her from the table. So anyway, we decided that we were going to lose some weight. So my wife found this app called Lose It, a cell phone app that tracks calories. So we both started tracking our calories, and we started snowshoeing like crazy, and just getting lots of exercise every day. We didn't have a dog at the time. It was right after Gunner passed away, and before we got Cali. Hadn't been on a scale in a while, and jumped on this electronic scale, and it came out with a number, and I thought, there's no way, obviously it's heavy. There's no way I could be that weight. I've never been that in my life. My wife got on this scale, and the same thing. She thought it must be heavy by 10 pounds or something. So sure enough, I get home and I jump on the scale, on our scale at home, and it read the same thing. So 196 pounds. I'm 5'10". My average weight over the years has probably been 180 pounds. And I've never had a low body mass index. I've never had low body fat. So I was okay with 180, but my proper weight probably for my height, if you look at the stats, the proper weight for 5'10" is like 165 pounds, but I haven't been that light since probably grade 9 or 10. So I set a goal of losing 25 pounds, and I averaged 2 pounds lost per week. So 12 and a half weeks, ended up going 13 or 14 weeks, and I lost what did I lose? 28 pounds. So I went all the way down to 168 pounds. I felt great, actually. Didn't really feel too light. I looked probably a little bit thin, but I was getting lots of exercise, so I was in really good shape. It's not like I just lost muscle mass. Anyway, 196 pounds down to 168, and I bounced back and averaged like 170 to 172 for the rest of that year, which I was happy with. But after that, kind of started letting things go again. Slowly, very slowly, and here I am 2 or 3 years later. So I jumped on the scale a couple of days ago because I felt like there was something going on. Like I had a couple of minor issues, and it just felt like I had high blood pressure. So when I was in the grocery store last week, I put on the blood pressure monitor, and it came back really high, higher than I've ever had, actually. And I know why. Over Christmas holidays, I'd been eating really poorly, and over the last year, as I was building this cabin, I started just slipping, eating too much. First of all, I knew I was eating a little bit too much, and I was okay with that because I was working hard and I needed the extra muscle. So in order to gain muscle fairly quickly, you need to eat enough calories that ends up also putting a little bit of fat on. So I was okay with that. So my New Year's resolution is to get back on the healthy eating plan that I've almost always done. So I'll be eliminating a few things from my diet and then straightening some things out again. So one of the issues over the last year in particular, while I was working on the cabin, started buying meat from the grocery store instead of, because I had gone through the 2 deer that I shot last year, and instead of sourcing organic and healthier meat, we were eating regular corn-fed beef from the store, and then pork and other meats that weren't organic or weren't from the land. And I know when I do that I end up getting too many calories and too much saturated fat and just a bad nutrient profile in corn-fed beef that just makes me not perform at my best. So right now I'll be getting back to it. So I have a deer in the freezer, have a grass-fed beef in the freezer, which is extremely healthy, extremely good meat, and some geese. I'll be catching fish. Another thing I didn't do as much this year. I didn't fish as often, or 2017. So I'm going to get back into that, getting a lot more fresh fish from the lakes and rivers around here, and other small game and so on. So my goal is to go from the 184 or 5 pounds that I'm weighing right now back down to, I think not quite down to 170, maybe 175 or 173, and try that weight out for this year, because I have a lot of big projects to work on, again, physically demanding projects this year that I need my strength, so I can't get too lean and lose any muscle mass. This is great. A lot more vegetables. Stop, hey, sit. Sit. Good girl, stay. Okay, go and eat. Good night, girlie. Time for bed, right, Bob? Okay. All right, Pop, let's go to bed, okay? Let's go to sleep. Come and lie down. Come and lie down, Pop. Good girl. Good night, Cali. Good night, Pop. Good girl. Tell my wife's been decorating. Well, Kelly's all curled up on her bed down there by the fire. Hope she's not too warm. But she is tired, so I think she'll be able to sleep. I'm going to pack it in. Well, I might read for a little bit and try to get to sleep early so that I can get up early. And I need to get this place more weather tight, so I think I'll spend tomorrow fixing up that door a little bit more, and then insulate the floor as well. It's a lot of cold coming up through the floor. Big day. All right, good night. So one of the reasons I wanted to build a cabin when I was younger, and it still holds true today, is that I wanted a cheap base cost of living so that I could get out and explore, have the extra money to get out there and explore and do other things. And that still holds true today. I think problem with these big houses that we have is that they cost a lot to maintain. You've got a lot of money into them, first of all, locked up, and they cost a lot to maintain, and they're not set up for going away and leaving them for any length of time. The bills just keep coming, right? The utilities are still there. They're less, but you're still paying them. So having a cabin like this with essentially next to no ongoing costs, such as utilities. The property taxes on this property are only $150 a year. If you go back to that no permit required video that I released back in August or September, I talk about how it's the snow melting on the stove. I talk about how we found this property and why we bought this particular property. And that was one of the reasons. It's an unorganized township and the taxes are next to nothing. So now that this place is getting close to finish, I have a lot of work to do outside, of course, a lot of other buildings to build, and the bathhouse. I need to make this place livable, essentially, in order for my wife to join me here. And I don't blame her. Things that I take for granted, like being able to sponge bathe or jump in the creek or in a lake to bathe, right up until freeze up, and then as soon as the ice melts in the spring, not something she's going to be willing to do, nor are my daughters when they visit. So I need a bathhouse, I realize now. Outhouse, probably need to make that a little bit more comfortable. And just get all the other things in, like that outdoor kitchen. This place has to feel like a home that you could live at forever. It has to have all the amenities that make it comfortable. Even though me personally, this would be it for me. I could live just like this and be quite happy. It's not sustainable for most people, including my wife, which, like I said, is completely understandable. I think it's worth having a place like this to remind us of how simple we can live and how happy we can be in something so simple, but on the other hand, to use it as kind of a base home to get out there and see new things and do different things. So not much of a reflection this week, but it is that time of year where I like to just sit back and think about the things that I did last year and then plan for the things that I'm going to do this year and set some goals. Of course, the goals I've set for the property are one thing, for the land here in the cabin, and then there's the personal goals, like getting my diet back under control, my weight under control, and my blood pressure lowered and things like that. Some important things that allow me to continue to enjoy this lifestyle. Unfortunately, this might be one of the last salt pork meals I have of the year. Like I said, I've got a little bit of a high blood pressure situation going on right now. I'm going to be 48 this spring in April, so it's at that age where I got to start paying a little bit more attention to a perfect diet, because my dad had, actually both sides have history of heart issues and high blood pressure, so something I'm going to always have to watch. So some people might say I'm only going to be 48, and it's not that old, but when you have a family history, you have to be extra careful. And my diet's pretty good, but I tend to let it go when I'm working hard, so I'm going to have to pay attention to everything I eat now. Back on the organic, healthy, low saturated fat, more plant-based diet. Another blanket, excuse me. Don't beg, you have your own food there. Yeah, I'm gonna miss pork this year, I think. So I have to get back onto the lifestyle that I Had been leading up until a couple of years ago, where I was growing pretty much all of our food and raising it, and then just preserving at this time of year, be eating things like jarred tomatoes and other vegetables and frozen things and so on. So I'm not shipping it in. So it's an ambitious year, but I've done it in the past. And, you know, obviously all of this is an addition to that, but back then I had a traditional job or a company to run, so I was just as busy. Like, can't use the excuse that I don't have time to do things, because I know it's just a matter of prioritizing my time. In the past, I would prioritize watching TV or, you know, doing things that weren't a good use of my time, which is fine. Everybody goes through that phase, but I don't want to get stuck in that phase and then, you know, 20 years from now look back and think, what did I do during that period? What a waste of time. I was young back then, even though I'm 48 this year. If you're younger than me, you don't consider 48 young. And if you're my age, you don't consider it young, but when you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s, you sure do. And you got to keep that in mind, you know. Keep moving and keep doing things, keep having fun times and creating memories and not regrets. So that's my goal for this year and forevermore, is just to keep going, keep doing things different, keep creating these great memories and doing interesting things. And having a place like this to unwind at is just, to me, the ultimate. You know, it's a reminder of everything that I go out there and do. To be able to come back to this and this be the reminder of this simple, the basics of life, you know, how simply we can live and appreciate this and be happy with this, and then everything else is a bonus. That's what I love about this place and this lifestyle. And the beauty is, if you're just starting out and this is your dream, you want to move off grid, the cost of living is low. Some people are saying, yeah, but he's got money and that's why he could do this. That freed up time, but this place was built extremely cheaply. What I recognize is that the world is changing. The economy is not what it was. The resources are not what they were. We don't have the abundance anymore. So what happens if I start another company and that goes bust as well? And I end up massive debt, and I'm older now and I can't recover. So it didn't make sense to me. So when I started my self-reliance, my real goal was to actually change my lifestyle so that that money could last my lifetime. And that's exactly what this is. I still need to earn money. I still need to make money for my everyday living expenses. People are saying I'm retired. Well, I'm not really retired. I'm just choosing to live a lifestyle that I can afford, that makes me happy, makes me healthy and happy, and that, you know, is enough. If I, you know, couldn't earn enough money to go out and do those things, to have those expensive things, if I'm in a position where I have to simplify and I have run out of resources, run out of money to do that, that it's too late. End up in a position that I'm struggling to find a way to acquire something like this. So I set out to acquire this while I was making money, so that I could go back to these basics and live, like I said, live happily. Now, because I'm married, that means something different than it did when I was younger, or if I was single now. If I was single, this would be it. I would live just this simply. I would still explore, but the cost of living for one person is extremely low. I have a wife, and therefore compromise. And part of that compromise is to add more amenities to this place than I would on my own, and to this property, and to continue to go and do things that she's excited about or interested in outside of this simple life. And that life's full of compromises. And it doesn't mean a degraded life. It means that you're sharing your life with somebody that you love, yet, you know, compromise includes some sacrifice, but you're not talking about major sacrifices where you give yourself up. You give up your dreams and your aspirations, inspirations. So I think it's important to get a real sense of who you are and what makes you happy, and try not to give that up in your marriage or in your relationships with other people. Hey, Cali. Hey, girl. You're bored now. You want me to go outside with you, don't you? I know what you're like. Hey. Dog's a sacrifice. Dog's a compromise, right? Yes, they give companionship, devotion, but they limit you as well. There's things you can't do. There's food you need to provide, time and space, and you gotta be careful where you take them, what they're getting into. Keep an eye on them. Yeah, girl. And they actually don't really fit into this lifestyle, really, because you can't leave. I can't leave her. I can't go on a canoe trip. I can't go somewhere with my wife and leave her here, obviously, so she has to be accommodated. And it's either leaving her with friends and family or taking her with us. So that's adding another complication, but we felt that this time in our life it was worthwhile. But they can add certainly a lot of expense if you're trying to live off grid. And it's one more animal to feed that doesn't really give you much back as far as productivity, at least. So I'm going to turn off the camera now. I think I've got a lot of work to do around here today. Chinking the cabin and insulating the floor. I need that pile of clay and moss out of here so that I can start building the benches and stools around that dining table. But the chinking and insulating the floor is not very exciting, so I think what I'll do is maybe include some clips in next week's video, and I'll stop this one right here. Hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you up here at the cabin next week. Take care.